Hey lovely sexy hobby people, welcome to today's video, which is a flick through for Wargames Illustrated issue 432. Let's get into it. We're still on the catch up, so right. We have some Napoleonic British Line Infantry Peninsula. So I'm assuming that's pre-1918, sorry, not 1918, 1815. We'll have a look at those in a bit. So let's have a quick squiz. Right, okay, subscriptions and observation post. Rules, supplements, figures, terrain, hobby, gear and more. Osprey Games, the Silver Bayonet, Canada. The Silver Bayonet Canada makes notable advances to Joe McCullough's Gothic horror Napoleonic game by taking the battles out of Europe. But it is also the first time Joe has relinquished his pen and allowed someone else to write an official expansion of his rule sets. Guerrilla Miniature Games, Ash Barker embraces the opportunity to bring Silver Bayonet battles to his homeland and adds plentiful North American gaming options and adventures. So, 28mm Napoleonic Horror is $14.99, 64-page full-colour softback rulebook. Osprey Publishing. We've got some brilliant bestiary. The spirits, monsters and beasts of the book's bestiary may be quite familiar to North American readers, but for the WI crew, far more familiar with European horror and folklore, this was a learning experience. Okay, yeah. Wow. The unsettling, sinewy stalking Wendigo. And then this is a... Jesus Christ. A Bax Walamux Sui, which kind of looks like a it kind of looks like an orc, but it looks like he's got like a double-faced head here. So you got a face there and a face on the top, possibly a face, teeth or something on his hand. Yeah, so that's interesting. And then some figures. Right. Wow, these look good. Review roundup from Other Partisan. Great Escape Games, Dead Man's Hand, Redux. So yeah, this is a game. Dead Man's Hand, Redux. And then we've got New Plastic Buildings Left. These two. Has the same footprint as the current foreground MDF kits. North Star, more musket and tomahawks. So this looks like the American War of Independence. And then we have Crooked Dice exploring the studio backlots. So these look like they're just for cards. That you would, so for example, if you're making a film and you're doing a street scene, you're not going to build whole buildings. You just like do the facade, the front facade, as you're walking down the street. And that's what these look like, and possibly some cliffs as well. And then First Call back to a town called Trinity. Just in case the Dead Man's Hand plastics aren't enough to satisfy your Old West terrain needs, First Call have got smoky smelling treat with their re-release of some fine MDF buildings. They look nice actually. And then Bloody Miniatures Mounted Assortment. Bloody Miniatures owner Richard Lloyd is well known as a converting and painting maestro, going by the handle Captain Blood on forums and social media and posting great looking new minis at a rate that seems unfair. Not content with the hobby workload he's spent the last couple of 30 years building his reputation as a miniature producer, releasing some splendid 28mm figures for the English Civil War, 30 Years' War. So there you go, we've got some round heads there. These look like they could very well be lobster tail helmets, which are these guys. Flashing blades, mounted cavaliers there, and then finishing off are the moss troopers below right, brigands who operated like mid-17th century border reavers. Okay, so that's these guys. Cool. So below left with the mounted cavaliers, and then these were cuirassiers on the attack. These ones. Release radar. So, Japanese Masters, let's begin in the Far East. Musashi from Grey for Now Games. A new character for Test of Honor. And Oshiro Models have released some new 15mm scale resin Japanese religious buildings, which are these. Oddest of the Oddments, New Goblins, and what looks like a war ballista. And then we have a Mexican band here, but we have, thankfully, Warp Miniatures continue to release physical products too, the latest of which is Jewel of the Dead, a 2-player starter set featuring some lovely ghostly and vampiric undead options. So that's what that is. Then we have a gyrocopter here. Vehicles for a modern world. I say modern, but the first one has been around for a while. The Flettner FL282 helicopter comes from a mix of resin and metal from First Calls UK. This was the world's first production helicopter and saw service with the Luftwaffe towards the end of World War II. It proved to be a useful artillery spotter, but not many were built. Yeah, I mean, that's quite an interesting design there. That I'm assuming that these are contra-rotating rotors. Which prevent the torque and spin problem. Oh, and then we have some modern. Now these look like FE432s. That's an FE432. That's an FE432 with Wombat. That looks like it's a mine layer version, and that's the mortar version. That looks like the bar mine layer plough and delivery system. So here we go. To the realm of more modern vehicles, Pendraken bring 17 versions of the FE432. These cover the Mark 1 and Mark 2 variants, including the Wombat, which is this one, the Ranger, which I believe is this one, and Abbott. So the Abbott self-propelled gun was built on the same chassis as the FE432. They will be a great addition to your 10mm British force, and at that scale you can add every single variant into your army without looking odd. Cool. New manufacturer. I end this month with new manufacturer and a new rule set. FT Miniatures. They Stranchi Sell Barricades.com. Probably murdered that. New Kid on the Block, distributed by Des Tranches or Des Tranches. Oh, Barricades, okay. And their first range, which covers the Russian Civil War, is already extensive. So there you go. And then we have some readers' letters. Skipped a page there. Cardboard Carrack. They're quite cool. Painting up Otto von Bismarck. What's this? This is a rhino howder. A battle rhino with a howder on it. So that's cool. Some Vikings. And then, what is this? End of the road. After 17 years of sterling service for the magazine, WI recently said goodbye to Ian Bennett. Okay. Gorillas in the Midst. So what's this? Editor Dan joins Ron Ringrose and his Essex Gamester chums for a Peninsula War mega game. Okay. So this is Napoleonics, I'm assuming, being Peninsula War. We were refighting action from the 1812 campaign season around the Spanish city of Valladolid. And again, fantastic board, lovely rendered buildings. I appreciate that there's a lot of marching in column, you know, with regards to the Napoleonic Wars. But it would be nice if the sets perhaps had slightly more variation with regards to their fighting poses. Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, great shot of the board lengthways. Down there. Black Powder, Napoleonic Wars, 1789 to 1815. Painting Walls of the Roses armour. Okay, here we go. Oh, this will be handy because I've got quite a few armoured characters that I need to paint for my Dungeons and Dragons group that I'm with. Nice, love that standard bearer. Zaragoza Besieged. What's this? As part of our Peninsula War theme, James shares how he modified Valour and Fortitude to play the first siege of Zaragoza. Okay. Are we going to get a decent look at the board? Or just like close-up photos? Prelude attacking the attackers to Zaragoza. The siege begins. Jervis's thoughts. Where to tinker with siege gaming. Siege Part 1, Charge of the Lance Brigade. Siege Part 2, Thrilling Tales. Okay. And then The Last Assault, 4th August 1808. Oh, excuse me. What have we got here? These 28mm Cold War. So what are these? British Army figures of the Cold War from 1960 to 1990. I mean, these guys look like they've got SLRs. And the head over that could be rolled up into a soft cap hat. Old Rough and Ready meets Old Fuss and Feathers. So what's this? Nick Buxey revisits passions of his wargaming past and explores the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 48. Okay. So a map showing where main battles happened. All US victories except for Sal Pascal. So where's Sal Pascal? Okay, can't see it here, but it's probably under a different name that I'm not going to recognise. Oh, San Pascal. There you go. Near San Diego. Right. Some great pictures of painted lancers. And then we're into painting Peninsula War veterans. Yeah, as the troops were in the theatre of operations for longer, they made much more modifications to their uniform and patches and stuff like that. This little painting guide for a mounted officer. Painting guide for a dog. Oh my god, there's a poodle here. French poodle was brown grey fur, worked up through rainy grey, medium sea grey. Regimental mascot, it says, but it doesn't say which regimental mascot. Officer, French officers, French line infantry. Return to Arabian Nightmares, Army of the Apes. Back in August of last year, Dr. Gianluca Raccagni introduced us to wargaming with Lion Rampant in games based on that famous collection of stories known as the Arabian Nights, or 1001 Nights. In this article, he reveals more colourful heroes, villains and adventures from the pages of the Arabian mythology. Now, wasn't that where Sinbad comes from? Our mounted ape on a wolf. That's cool. It's not something you see every day. So the ape boss. So we've got an ape boss here. Is it up to scratch? MDF buildings. Now, I'd be more inclined to buy MDF buildings for modern settings because this is quite crisp, and once painted up I think it would look quite crisp, you know, for modern settings. Gary Faulkner considers a scratch building and how 2023 offers all kinds of new options to the home hobbyist. A little detached bungalow there. So, varying levels of 3D prints from STL files. Right, the other partisan 2023. Valor and Fortitude in the Franco-Prussian War. Looks like a show report here, with some great looking boards. This castle board here looks fantastic. And another fabulous castle board here. Wow. So, Battle of Scarif. .6mm Battle of Scarif. This, so like tiny little ATACs, all-terrain cargo. No, ATCT, all-terrain cargo transport, was it? And then we have a World War II one, Defence of Calais. And then we're into starting with Stargrave. Okay, so I might sit down and read this then. Paul J. Carney shares his Stargrave hobby experiences, picking parts, building the crew, base building. Is this like a skirmish game like Necromunda and Kill Team? Some great looking minis. I'm assuming that I could like proxy minis with Warhammer 40k stuff that I already own. Where did you get that hat? The actual helmet after reconstruction. Okay, this looks interesting. Wargames illustrator editor Dan shares his latest editor's exploits. His quest to bring a unique Iron Age warrior back from the grave in miniature. Wow, so that is a fair old helmet. Quite often, in the ancient battles, leaders or particular warriors might have a particular style of helmet or something which would make them stand out to their own troops. Obviously, it had the added problem of it's also standing out to the enemy, but that was one way of knowing your officers and or particular warriors on the battlefield. A figure collection transformed. There's a wicker man there. Right, WI editor Dan shares his enthusiasm for the background and setting of new Osprey game, A War Transformed. A radical new tabletop setting presents exciting challenges for the enthused gamer with the release of War Transformed by Osprey Games. The Doggerland front has been offered as a new theatre of operations for World War I wargaming. In AWT's alternative history of the early 20th century, the sea between the coast of Britain and Denmark has retreated and the exposed area has become a new battleground in the Great War. The catalyst for this transformative event was a collision between an asteroid and the moon, an event coined the Shattering. Okay, that's an interesting premise. I mean, if we're going to have like a little wicker man here, do we not need a little Edward Woodward in police uniform behind the trapdoor there? Some sort of troll. You've got British Tommies with gas masks. Like just old dinosaur skeletons randomly placed over trenches. Things from the basement. So, for the last 8 years, a small business in the northeast of the US has been making waves in the world of wargaming terrain. Dave Taylor interviews Jorg Bender about his company and his hobby passions and gets him to share some model making tips. So, a modelling interview, just looking at some of the, like converting, adding texture, etc. to MDF buildings. And they look good. The finished products look good when you've done that. That's pretty cool. Nice picture of the finished one there. And then it looks like we're into our final few pages of adverts. And then there we go. Right. Come down and we will have a look at the plastic. So this is the plastic. It is there a date? Yeah, 2014, Warlord Games 2014. Now, as I was saying, I do kind of feel that the number of poses often in Napoleonic sets is very limiting because they are pretty much troops on the march. You know, and I wanted to look at building a battalion in square, but the amount of kits that I would have to buy in order to get enough troops for kneeling and standing firing would just be ridiculous. But we are looking at these guys. So we've got our cross straps for our backpack here. Obviously they're holding the musket in what was pretty much the standard way for marching. We have shakos for the head. We have a bear head here, and we have a set of epaulets. So I'm assuming that one of these might be with the epaulets. One of these might be made into perhaps a more senior rifleman. And then we have our little backpacks, and the backpacks, although they're mostly the same, there's a couple of little variations. So we've got our canteen, and we've got our bedroll, and obviously the little knapsack for goods, but like this one has an extra, possibly an extra cooking pot, and this one has something attached to it again which could hold some form of cooking pot. I believe this little bag here is actually a cartridge pouch. Just looking, yeah, I believe that's the cartridge pouch just there that would have held all the ball and the powder that would have been wrapped in cartridge paper and put in this little leather pouch. And then obviously the rifleman would dip into that, take out his charge, and prime his weapon using it. So yeah, cool. They're not bad miniatures. And although they're based on these little round bases, I'd probably be tempted to put them onto bigger bases, simply because these just aren't going to, they're not really going to offer a lot of stability on uneven terrain boards. So you might end up with miniatures falling over unless you've got movement trays that you're using for them, or you stick them to a particular movement tray. But yeah, nice little set of miniatures. There's only 5. You get 7 heads there, 7 Shakos. You get some epaulets as well, and then 5 backpacks to make 5. So even if you picked up a kit which had like maybe 4 or 5 of these sprues, there'd still be almost enough variation, and then you can add in a little bit of extra variation with painting and shades, you know, more worn out trousers, that sort of thing. So yeah, not bad. Right, I hope you enjoyed that little flick through, and hopefully you'll join me in the next video. Alright, take care, bye bye.